Hello friends, you're very welcome here. My name is Aisling and today I'm here to talk about new release books for 2024. I should have made this video in January at the start of the year, but we're just going to pretend that the last 2 months haven't happened. We're in March and I'm just going to chat about books that are still upcoming for the rest of the year. So without further ado, the first book that I'm going to speak about is a young adult book by an author that I've never actually heard of before, and the name of the book is Icarus and it's by an author called Kay Ancrum. I just kind of came across this and thought that it sounded quite interesting. It's essentially a retelling of the Icarus story, one which I am relatively familiar with. Makes a change. It's definitely been modernized, made much more contemporary, so I'll read you a bit about what it's about. So Icarus Gallagher is a thief. He steals priceless art and replaces it with his father's impeccable forgeries. For years, one man, the wealthy Mr. Black, has been their target, revenge for his role in the death of Icarus's mother. To keep their secret, Icarus adheres to his own strict rules to keep people and feelings at bay. Don't let anyone close, don't let anyone touch you, and above all, don't get caught. Until one night he does, not by Mr. Black, but by his mysterious son Helios, now living under house arrest in the Black Mansion. Instead of turning Icarus in, Helios bargains for something even more dangerous, a friendship that breaks every single one of Icarus's rules. As reluctance and distrust become closeness and something more, they uncover the bars of the gilded cage that has trapped both of their families for years. One, Icarus is determined to escape, but his father's thirst for revenge shows no sign of fading, and soon it may force Icarus to choose the escape he's dreamed of or the boy he's come to love. Reaching for both could be his greatest triumph, or it could be his downfall. So there's a little bit of a art heistiness going on. It's a queer young adult novel and it's a retelling of Icarus, and to me that absolutely sounds like stunning and I'm really looking forward to it. Generally my most anticipated books do tend to be books by authors I've already read and loved from before, but this one definitely caught my eye. And it's out on the 26th of this month, so 26th of March, so not long to wait for that one. Okay, and then next up, not too long after that, from the 2nd of April, is a book from an author that I have read from and loved before. So the book that's coming out is called Table for Two Fictions, and it's by Immortels. I have read A Gentleman in Moscow and loved it. Loved it. It's one of my favourite books of all time, and Paramount Plus has a TV show coming out of it really soon as well, which I'm very excited about. And I loved The Lincoln Highway when I read it last year as well. I haven't yet read Rules of Civility, his first novel, but we're gonna get there someday. So this one is essentially kind of a grouping of stories, I think. A collection of stories set in New York and Los Angeles. So the millions of readers of Immortels are in for a treat as he shares some of his shorter 6 stories set in New York City and a novella in Los Angeles. The New York stories, most of which are set around the turn of the millennium, take up everything from the death-defying acrobatics of the male ego to the fateful consequences of brief encounters and the delicate mechanics of compromise which operate at the heart of modern marriages. I kind of struggle with shorter stories sometimes, but this is Immortels. He writes literary fiction. He has written some beautiful historical novels. To me, I think he writes really brilliant characters, really well fleshed out, really interesting, really unique in and of themselves. I find sometimes when I'm reading, sometimes I get characters mixed up, but I feel like I've always been on the ball with Immortels' characters, and some say his pacing is quite slow, possibly frustrating, but for me, he's probably up there with my favourite authors, and I'm really excited to read this one when it comes out on the 2nd of April. Next up then, on the 9th of April, we have 2 books. So the first book I'm going to speak about is a debut poetry collection, and that is Instructions for Travelling West by Joy Sullivan. I would imagine that some of you might have come across her poetry on the likes of Instagram. She has this really wonderful Instagram account that's just kind of a bit of about her life and obviously her poetry as well, and This one apparently is a vivid and inspiring poetry collection about what's possible when we heed our instincts and honour our intuition, allowing ourselves to strike out for new territories of love, pleasure and peace. First, you must realise you're homesick for all the lives you're not living, and then you must commit to the road and the rising loneliness and to the sincere thrill of coming apart. I think she so far has proven herself to be a really observant person and really expresses a lot of gratitude for the life that she lives, and really encourages people to kind of get out there and to try something different, you know, to basically blow up your life. And you know, that thing that we all really want to do every now and again, just be like, I'm not into this, I just want to go. Well, she's one of these women that did it and has lived to tell the tale and has really found herself, and I just really find her an interesting character and a really beautiful poet. So that's that one. Then also on the 9th of April is one that probably needs no introduction to a lot of people. A lot of people, I imagine, will know that this one is coming out, and it is a novel, another one by Leigh Bardugo, and this one is called The Familiar, and I believe this one is actually a standalone, so not part of any other series so far. I think it's a historical fantasy novel, low on the fantasy possibly, I could be wrong in that. In a shabby house on a shabby street in the new capital of Madrid, Lucia Cortado uses scraps of magic to get through her days of endless toil as a scullion, but when her scheming mistress discovers the lump of a servant cowering in the kitchen is actually hiding a talent for little miracles, she demands Lucia uses those gifts to better the family's social position. So it definitely is quite historical. It sounds like there will be quite a bit of magic. It's not really quite clear whether or not she was trying to hide it. I'd imagine that she was or is. And I think this one could be a really sprawling novel. I haven't read the whole lot of the description because we want to leave something behind, but I am seeing the word perilous in here, so obviously this starts small and gets much bigger, and Leigh Bardugo has really proven herself, to me anyway, to be a very compulsively readable author. Anything that I've ever read by her I devoured, like fully whole down the gullet, no problems. And I just find her writing to be really entertaining usually, and like her world building is great as well. And this is, I believe, to be another adult novel of hers, and I'm so excited for it. Another one that's on my radar that I really have so much hope for is Hagstone by Sinead Gleeson, and it is to be published in April, on April 11th, so again not long to wait. So one of probably my favourite books ever is a book called Constellations by this author. It's a book about bodies and illness and family and being a woman in the modern world, and it's a series of essays, and I remember reading it and just falling so much into it and feeling so seen, and I just loved it and always recommend it. And so this is her first novel, and I'm really excited to see what she does with, I guess, her imagination rather than her past. So the sea is steady for now, the land readies itself. What can be done with a woman on the cliff? On a wild and rugged island, cut off and isolated to some, artist Nell feels the island is her home. It's the source of inspiration for her art, rooted in landscape, folklore and the feminine. The mysterious Indians, a commune of women who have travelled there from all over the world, consider it a place of refuge and safety, of solace in nature. All the islanders live alongside the strange murmurings that seem to emanate from within the depths of the island, a sound that's almost supernatural, a summoning as the Indians call it. What's interesting here is Indians, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think in the Irish language, Inian means daughter. But one day a letter arrives at Nell's door from the reclusive Indians, who invite Nell into the commune for a commission to produce a magnificent art piece to celebrate their long history. In its creation, Nell will discover things about the community and about herself that will challenge everything she thought she knew. I imagine this to be absolutely beautifully written. There's something I find about Irish authors, there often tends to be a lot about landscape a lot about history, a lot about folklore, and I have a feeling this one is going to be something similar. I'm really excited for it. There's something about the lens through which Sinead Gleeson writes about the world that really excites me. Can't wait for that one. And then on the 14th of May we have Miranda July, and she has a new novel coming out called All Fours. And I feel like this one for me is a bit of a blast from the past, because I was absolutely obsessed with Miranda July maybe about a decade ago. I remember being in college and receiving her like regular emails, and they were called The Future, and they were just bizarre pieces of advice to help you get through. They were brilliant and really surprising and just really quirky and fun, but also really heartfelt. And I have read some of her other writing and I'm excited. I was really excited to see her name come up because I feel like I haven't heard about or from her in quite some time. This one is about a semi-famous artist who announces her plan to drive cross-country from LA to New York. 20 minutes after leaving her husband and child at home, she spontaneously exits the freeway, beds down in a nondescript motel, and immerses herself in a temporary reinvention that turns out to be the start of an entirely different journey. Miranda July's second novel confirms the brilliance of her unique approach to fiction. Yeah, I really agree with that. There's something really unique about her observations about how she writes. She has a book. So I think her novel was The First Bad Man, and then she had a book of short stories that I really loved. It was No One Belongs Here More Than You, and there's a quote that always kind of bounces around my brain from that story collection, and I'm going to paraphrase now, but it was something about wanting to know how people live within their bodies. I'll try look it up and put it on the screen here, but it's something that kind of rattles within my head, and I don't even want to attempt it because I'm going to really badly paraphrase it and ruin it. But I've just found her observations have sort of sat with me. The things that she notices, the things that she writes about, the characters that she creates, there's something really unique about her. She's also made films as well. She's just, I don't know, she's a wonderful woman, and I'm really glad to see that she's still out there producing work, and I'm really excited for it. How many times can I say that I'm really excited for a book? Next up then is a book by an author that I have read from before. This book is out on the 4th of June, and that is a book called Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. I read The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry, I think in about 2018, and it's definitely a novel that has stuck with me. It was historical fiction, and it was just a really unusual, really unique story, and however I felt about it, I feel like it's just sitting in my brain still, and it's one of those books that you maybe don't realise at the time how special it is, and then in hindsight I'm still thinking about it. And I did enjoy it at the time, and I think I probably gave it about 4 stars at the time, but even still, like, what are we, 6 years later, I'm still thinking about it. So this one in particular anyway it's definitely literary fiction anyway. Thomas Hart and Grace Macaulay have lived all their lives in the small Essex town of Aldley. Though separated in age by 3 decades, the pair are kindred spirits, torn between their commitment to religion and their desire to explore the world beyond their small Baptist community. It is 2 romantic relationships that will rend their friendship, and in the wake of this rupture, Thomas develops an obsession with a vanished 19th century astronomer said to haunt a nearby manor, and Grace flees Aldley entirely for London. Over the course of 20 years, by coincidence and design, Thomas and Grace will find their lives brought back into orbit as the mystery of the vanished astronomer unfolds into a devastating tale of love and scientific pursuit. Thomas and Grace will ask themselves what it means to love and to be loved, what is fixed and what is mutable, how much of our fate is predestined and written in the stars, and whether they can find their way back to each other. I really like the idea of a friendship between people who are not of similar age at all. I think that's something we don't see explored all too often. It's kind of more like a maternal or paternal relationship, regardless of whether people are related or, you know, maybe some kind of mentorship or something, but this doesn't mention anything like that. It just mentions a friendship, and I think that's really nice. It does sound like a really special story, quite haunting potentially, and as I said, that one is out in May. And then we're skipping the summer and we're coming right into September. So there are 3 books due for publication this September that I'm really looking forward to. The first one then on the 10th of September is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. If you've been around here for a while, you will know that I have banged on time and time again about the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I believe this to be a novel that's kind of set in the same world, not necessarily the same characters. I found the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches to be brilliant. It was such a cozy little fantasy, and it was all about like found family, which is one of my favourite tropes in any story. So this one follows Sarah Swan, and Sarah Swan was once one of the most powerful witches in Britain. Then she resurrected her great aunt Jasmine from the very recently dead, lost most of her magic, befriended a semi-villainous talking fox, and was exiled from her magical guild. Now she slightly reluctantly and a bit grumpily helps Aunt Jasmine to run an inn in Lancashire, where she deals with her quirky guest shenanigans, tries to keep the talking fox in check, and longs for the magical future she lost. Sounds to be very typical of what I know of Sangu Mandana's writing. I don't even have anything to say about it. I just love a cozy story. I feel like this could be another kind of found family-esque one as well, which, if I'm correct, yes please. And then quite soon after we have another witchy story out on the 19th of September, and this is a book by a debut author that I'm sure many of you are aware of, and that is Lucy Wood of YouTube fame. I think she came up the YouTube ranks as somebody who did kind of like a little bit of lifestyle, a little bit of beauty, a little bit of fashion, and a lot of books. And now it transpires that she has written her own little cozy novel, and it just sounds perfect for autumn. So we follow Belladonna Blackthorn, and she hasn't lost her magical spark, but she hasn't seen it in a while either. Balancing work at her beloved Lunar Books with protecting it from her toxic boss, all while concealing her witchcraft from the non-witches around her, Belle is burnt out. Perfecting the potential of her magic is the last thing on her mind, but when her 30th birthday brings a summons from her coven and a trial that tests her worthiness as a witch, Belle risks losing her magic forever. With the month of October to fix things and signs that dark forces may be working against her, Belle will need all the help that she can get. From the women in her life, and from an unlikely mentor figure, and even from an infuriating watchman who's sworn to protect her. So this is found family. There's a slow burn romance. It's cozy. It's very autumnal. Honestly, cannot wait. Only a few days later again, one of my favourite authors of all time, again needs no introduction, Sally Rooney has a new book coming out on September 24th. It's only recently just been announced. We don't know much about it. There's a small blurb here. So it's a book called Intermezzo, and it tells of brothers Peter and Ivan Kubek and how they cope with the death of their father. Peter is a successful Dublin lawyer in his 30s who is medicating himself to sleep and struggling to manage his relationships with 2 very different women. His enduring first love Sylvia, and Naomi, a college student for whom life is one long joke. Ivan, 22, has begun seeing an older woman with a turbulent past, and that's all we're getting. I feel like it's just going to be very typical Sally Rooney, kind of set in Dublin, really about the characters, really slow, probably quite a bit of miscommunication because we're Irish and that's what we do. If anybody ever says that the miscommunication in Sally Rooney's books is completely unrealistic, come live in Ireland for a while and you'll understand how Irish people can say an awful lot without saying anything at all. I believe we're very stoic people, even if we have a reputation for actually being very friendly. I believe the both can exist side by side, and I'm just really excited. I always get so immersed in her worlds, and I feel like they're truly representative of what it's like to live in contemporary Ireland. So those are 10 books that I'm really looking forward to in the coming rest of this year, and I hope that maybe you might have found 1 or 2 books in here that sound interesting to you as well. Is there anything that I've missed that you think personally I should be picking up on, should be picking up as somebody who is supposed to not be buying books and who hasn't been buying books this year? These books are kind of allowances that I'm allowing myself new releases, especially Sinead Gleeson and Sally Rooney and Sangu Mandana and Lucy Wood, and actually probably most of them, to be honest. I will try my best to get most of them out of the library if at all possible. So yeah, that's that, and that is another video for me for this week. I hope you're well, I hope you're minding yourself, and if you would like to, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. If you'd like to leave a comment and you have no idea what to leave me a little sunshine emoji, because today it's actually sunny outside and it has rained so much here in Ireland. I feel like every time I sit down here I'm like trying to pick up the light a little bit, but today we actually have some lovely daylight. So yeah, a little bit of sunshine, and otherwise I'll chat to you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll chat to you next week. Bye bye.